Now we have on the stage Johannes Näder, which is contributing to the public money, public code framework at FSFE. And he will explain us how free software can be fostered through public tenders. So thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thanks. So, hi everyone, and welcome. My name is Johannes Näder. I work as a policy project manager for the Free Software Foundation Europe. For those who don't know, the FSFE is a charity that empowers users to control technology by using free software. And free software, probably you're all familiar with this concept, can be used, shared, studied, and improved by everyone for any purpose without limitation. It can be shared for free, but of course also for money, and that's what this talk is about: how to channel public money now being used for proprietary software to free software. Within the FSFE, I also coordinate our Public Money, Public Code initiative. We want legislation requiring that publicly financed software developed for public administrations be available under a free software license. So if it's public money, it should be public code as well. When we talk about public money, public code, one thing is clear: public procurement is key. It's a crucial lever that decides whether public money goes into proprietary software or into free software. For years, public procurement used to be a topic only for those who had to deal with it. It was bureaucratic and complex and never made it into party programs or election campaigns. That time is over. More and more decision makers realize that procurement is not just about buying things, it is about shaping markets. It is, or it can be, a political tool. Across the EU, procurement, public procurement, accounts for over 2 trillion euros per year. That's around 14% of the EU GDP. So whether governments buy school furniture, buses, or software, they spend public money in a way that influences entire industries. So how this money is being spent matters enormously. Strategic procurement can, for instance, promote sustainability, labor rights, what we care about today, digital resilience, or, as others frame it, digital sovereignty through free software. It's good that right now the EU is revising its public procurement directive, an important step to push for public money, public code in the EU. So let's look at what has been going wrong the last years, why the reform is a window of opportunity, what this means, what this reform means for free software, and how we can make sure it goes into the right direction. The political context is obvious. In a more fragile geopolitical situation, governments and civil society have started to ask, how sovereign are we really? Who controls the infrastructures we rely on? Where can these dependencies lead in times of crisis and conflict? In software, these dependencies are particularly strong. European administrations rely heavily on a small number of US-based proprietary vendors. This so-called vendor lock-in leads to political risk. When a single company decides to end support, for example, or to raise prices, entire administrations are stuck. Proprietary cloud providers could, be it under political pressure or deliberately, even lock out unwanted persons, administrations, or whole governments or even countries. At the same time, this lock-in fosters a market dominated by a few suppliers, with negative consequences for public administrations and for Europe's digital resilience. This is why we need controllable, shapeable, transparent digital infrastructures. Only free software empowers governments and administrations to escape the vendor lock-in, and only free software enables resilience. Although free software offers a way out, our current procurement law doesn't make that path very easy. It was designed for purchasing proprietary licenses and thereby reinforces the status quo. So what is already used continues to be purchased. Free software nowadays is structurally disadvantaged and often excluded by the design of tenders. The EU procurement rules from 2014 allow for free software procurement in principle, but they don't mention it, and there is no obligation, of course, to prioritize free software. Some member states in the EU went further with national rules aiming to reduce the vendor lock-in. For example, Italy requires justification when proprietary software is being purchased, or Bulgaria has a free software policy, free software first policy for new or for self-developed projects. However, most such rules lack enforcement or contain loopholes. And in most European countries, tenders still follow the lowest bid principle, leaving no space for strategic goals like tax sovereignty. This leads also to another problem. Those who want to procure free software often have to justify their preference and argue against old myths. For example, they must explain why free software is not a risk, but a strength. To change this situation for the better, we need binding procurement rules to purchase free software, and the current reform is a real window of opportunity. It looks like both the Commission and the EU Parliament want to make strategic procurement possible. To use public tenders as a political tool, but there is no consensus at the moment on the decision which strategic goals should be prioritized. For example, different groups push their own agendas. For example, Social Democrats focus on workers' rights, the Greens on sustainability, Conservatives on competitiveness, and digital sovereignty at the moment isn't high on anyone's agenda yet. We are currently waiting at the moment for the Commission's proposal for the reform, which should be released in the next month or in early 2026. And if digital sovereignty in this draft is listed as a strategic objective, we will have a chance to anchor free software first as a principle in EU law. But if digital sovereignty is not in the draft, it will be much harder to add it later. It could be still argued for under other strategic umbrellas, such as sustainability. Still, it will be far easier if digital sovereignty appears directly in the Commission's draft. Our focus is therefore to convince the Commission that digital sovereignty through free software is of decisive strategic importance for the EU and for its member states. We have made this case to the Commission this summer in our response to a consultation on the planned procurement review, and we also received very positive feedback for that. Still, even if digital sovereignty is included in the draft, it might not be defined in our sense. For us, it is very clear, and this is also our key message, there is no digital sovereignty without free software. Free software is not the only, but it's a necessary condition for sovereign public infrastructures. But since the Draghi report was released in the last year, a competing narrative has been gaining traction under the slogan, "Buy European." Different stakeholders claim that sovereignty means buying European-made products with no other criteria. And this resonates with many policymakers. It sounds patriotic, it sounds simple and easy, but of course it is misleading. So if buy European becomes the core principle of procurement, we might end up with national or European tech stacks based primarily on a local proprietary software. And that would mean replace one dependency with another. Also, free software is not, of course, by definition, does not stop at national or at European borders. And moreover, the Buy European framing pushes free software out of sight as a prerequisite for digital sovereignty. So if we discuss about Buy European a lot, then policymakers will go for this as a strategic goal and not think about free software first as a strategic goal. So whenever we talk about digital sovereignty, we should always emphasize that we mean sovereignty through free software, not merely European software. We've already made this point to the Commission and will continue to do so in Parliament and also among national governments. And at the same time, I think this Buy European notion is very strong. So probably this won't go away, and we shouldn't. We should be careful not to get in opposition to, with our free software first demands, not to get in opposition to Buy European, because both can be done. We can buy European and we can buy free software. In the European Parliament, a free software first approach already found a majority in the Tech Sovereignty Own Initiative report earlier this year. The question, of course, is how stable that support remains during reform negotiations within the next month and the next year. Besides Buy European, instead of free software first, there are other pitfalls in free software procurement we must address. So, as we all know, proprietary software producers are very creative when it comes to undermining free software first procurement rules by open-washing proprietary products, for example, so selling proprietary products while pretending they are free software, or by profiting from free software tenders without giving back to the original producers in the ecosystem, so free riding And both open washing and free riding destroy trust and harm free software providers. They undermine public money, public code, and strategic procurement aimed at digital sovereignty through free software. Therefore, the question is not only what is procured, but also how it is procured. Strategic procurement must not reward those who game the procurement system, but those who build and sustain the free software ecosystem. We therefore need good procurement criteria for free software. For example, to give you some examples, that might be metrics to measure active upstream contributions. It might be documented license compliance or metrics for community contributions, for community management, or is there good documentation? And of course, there are many others that also can be measured. I think I'm already on the next slide. Under this QR code, you will find a talk by me I gave last year on the SFSCon, digging deeper into this topic. I think it won't work if every procurement office has to come up with such criteria on their own. So it is good that different stakeholders across Europe are already working on this to develop such criteria. Also, quantitative metrics invented for other purposes can be used as tools, for example, health, security, and sustainability prognosis by the OpenSSF or by Chaos. And fortunately, also some member states have experimented with metrics as well, for example, in Sweden or in Switzerland with their open source practice guidelines from 2019. If you know good examples or best practices, please reach out to us because we are also interested to learn about something like this. And we cannot expect the Commission draft to deliver such criteria right away, but later in the process, there will be implementation guidance by the Commission, and that's where such concrete proposals will be very helpful for criteria. Besides the procurement criteria, also knowledge about open washing, free riding, so fraudulent market behavior has to be institutionalized and transferred to procurement offices across Europe. One thing is clear, or to me at least it is quite clear, and I think you will agree, open washing will not disappear. It's simply very attractive to try this, and also free riding. So therefore, knowing how to tackle it will be an ongoing task and very important task, even if we have good procurement rules in place. And even if free software procurement becomes easier, we have other obstacles. So micro enterprises and SMEs will still face barriers because many tenders are simply too big and exclude small companies or individual developers contributing to core infrastructure. So we need tenders accessible for free software producers, and we need new and creative public funding models, for example, free software sponsorships by administrations, like, for example, the city of Munich is already doing it, and we also need secure long-term funding for critical infrastructures. Let's take a look the road ahead. From the Commission proposal, which we expect within the next month, to adoption, it will take roughly a year, likely until beginning or mid-2027. And once adopted, member states will have to implement it. This is a process that will take more or less another 2 years. That means we're looking at 2029 or later before the new rules will take effect. During this time, we need persistent advocacy and creative ideas to ensure free software first and good free software criteria survive the translation into national law. Let's sum it up. I missed one. No, that's right. The EU procurement reform is a window of opportunity. It could shift many billions of euros away from proprietary software and towards free software that strengthens Europe's resilience and benefits everyone. But even if we don't achieve all our goals now, the debate helps us to keep free software on the political agenda for the long run. Remember, with public money, public code, we're drilling through very hard wood. And this takes time. We won't see the results probably in a year. It will really take a lot of time, but we will stay on it, following our vision, 100% free software in public administrations on all levels across Europe. It might take us some years to reach that goal, hopefully not until the year 1496. Maybe we can achieve it way before 2048, but for that we have to start moving ahead now. And that's where we need your help. Please become an FSFE supporter today. It is your donation that makes our work possible and helps us ensure that public money, public code becomes reality. Unfortunately, no time for questions really, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Johannes Näder. Really interesting talk, and